Hey, Michelle is back again on this February 3rd, 2026 on a Tuesday. I'm going to upload as many videos as I can because I sense that this is the opportunity to do so and that I'm going to be so busy doing other things that I may not be able to. And that's a good thing, actually. That's a good thing. So I want to come on back and talk about the consequences of us, and when I say us, our humanity, as the most perfect liars ever. Our humanity is the perfect liars ever. We've been able to morph our fantasies and imaginations into a certain level of energy. Okay, a certain level of energy similar to the criminal negative energy, and chances are it's all a part of it. It all goes together. Our abilities to lie, to be deceptive and manipulative, and sometimes okay, there we go. Sometimes it's not always intentional to cause harm per se, because it has been passed down for decades upon decades, generations upon generations. Centuries about this ability to lie, and this is it's a troubling thing, because even under the best circumstances, I'm not going to know if someone's telling me the truth, and neither are you. And there's a lot of defensiveness in that when you are attempting to get the truth out of people or show them the truth. That can be dangerous, actually. That's why I said deconstruction can be dangerous, especially when you're dealing with religiously indoctrinated people, politically indoctrinated people, gender-based indoctrinated people. All of this biases that's going on with each one of us, including artificial intelligence. So I say this to illustrate to you how the importance of being silent about your intentions to deconstruct. Make sure you are in a safe environment per se to do so. Again, I had this intense conversation with someone earlier, and for as long as I've known this person, they've always exaggerated things. They've always seen something that may not have been there. Okay. And that sadly has to do with the genetics and the genetics of, or the condition of schizophrenia, which is more often than none the cause of religious indoctrination, schizophrenia. And sadly, it is affecting people who believe, or assume, I should say, that they're not indoctrinated somehow, religiously indoctrinated. That religiously indoctrination, I told you, has several tentacles, whereas the religious indoctrination has those tentacles of how they affect your ability to think and reason, and your ability to make decisions. There's an interference with this religious indoctrination with those tentacles, and we're being told and being taught that once these tentacles get into people, it'll be next to impossible to relieve them of that. It all depends on how far gone they are. So that's why I say deconstruction is dangerous. Okay, and so that's why you need to keep that to yourself as you're doing that. I know a lot of people talk about it on the social media platforms. It's not a goddamn thing I can do about that. That's a choice. It's a free will. People are, they want to express themselves. They want to share. And also people are looking for some ways to engage and get likes and followers too. It's an economic factor that plays a role as well. Out of all I've done on the social media platform, I haven't gotten paid anything, but it hasn't stopped me. Okay, but I do have products out there that is going to help to supplement my income once it resonates properly. Now, I won't say any more about that right now. So schizophrenia, hearing voices, usually, and I put out something about this many times. If someone is telling you that they're hearing voices other than their own, they're schizophrenic. Period. Okay, and I know that's hard for a lot of people to deal with, especially people that are religiously indoctrinated, because they believe that they're hearing the voice of God, Jesus, Lord. That they're hearing this voice of Jesus, God, and Lord whereas they're supposed to be telling you or telling somebody about what Jesus, God, and Lord are saying. And then if you're logical and rational and reasonable, you'll ask the next question: why do they need to go through you? And that's true. So that would shut all this down, this bullshit about hearing voices and hearing God, and God told me this and God told me that. That's schizophrenia. Period. End of it. Okay, so sadly, when you are developing as a young person, you're gonna have fantasies. You're gonna make believe. That's part of your adolescence, to explore all of that, to go wild if you can. But it's up to your parent, okay, to bring you back. Okay, snap out of it. Go clean your room. Snap out of it. Eat your dinner. You know what I mean? Get you out of it. And that's why it's so important for children to be outdoors if they can safely, and be in their own backyard where it's safe. Because when you're out there in that environment, you're going to get the impulses to wake you up. Again, sadly, there is an encasement of criminal negative energy, which is filled with religion and all other factors. That plasma I told you of the criminal negative energy is interfering as well. So it interferes with some of the neutral positive impulses that you're going to receive to help you. Okay, snap out of it. So when I was a young girl, I shared about the dreams I used to have. I used to have vivid dreams. I used to have lucid dreams. And when I used to have the lucid dreams, in the dream, I knew I was dreaming. Okay, I knew I was dreaming, but I was somewhere, and I can remember places I had gone. It was really cold, and the sand was white. It was white sand. When I would touch the sand, it was cold, and the sand was white. It was cold and white. And I can remember knowing, like I said, I knew I was dreaming, and started dancing and acting really silly because I knew I was dreaming. And I started walking around. It was dark. It was kind of dark. It was dark. And I can remember just walking around wherever I was. And then, of course, when I started to do a little bit more things, what used to piss me off is I would come out of the dream before I can actually do anything. I used to have those kind of dreams all the time, and I used to have these dreams that terrorized me. I'm serious. Some dreams that terrorized me. So I had those experiences as to know. So I know the difference between whether I'm hallucinating and being delusional and when I'm not. And that's so important, because you're going to run into those opportunities, because everything's an opportunity, to where you're going to have to determine, okay, is this real or is it not? And a lot of people believe that if I can't see it, it's not there. If I can't hear it, it's not, and when I say that, it's not like you're hearing voices inside your head, you're hearing voices outside of you. So when somebody's talking to you, they're talking outside of you. Say for another human being's talking to me, I'm hearing their voice talking to me. Okay, it's not like it's in here. in my brain and somebody's talking. No, the only thing going on in my brain is my voice. And in most cases, I don't hear my voice. I interact in a in an energetic way with who I am, what I am, and why I am. So because of the consequences of us intentionally, and a lot of times it's all intentional lies. Like I told you about the moon landing. Nobody's going to accept that because everything, the traces of it is it's already been altered. The Apollo, I think it's Apollo 11. That fake moon landing. Yeah, that was fake in 1969, I think it was. Yes, in 1969. But it's not going to be admitted. People are not going to, because the people that were involved, most of them are dead. They were so heavily drugged and so heavily hypnotized to where, they believed they were on the moon. And whether it's determined that was false, that's up to whoever. That's up to the distant future. Like I said, we'll have the technology. We won't have the technology, but we'll have the help of others that have the technology to prove to us. So, almost 80% of what we've said is not true. On a grand scale. And I told you we have two NASAs. One that's considered the light NASA that entertains us and just tells us what they're doing and lying and carrying on, and the dark NASA, who are doing these secretive, clandestine operations. Hopefully, they're working on that asteroid that's supposedly supposed to hit April of 2029. Hopefully, they're working on that. Working on how to deter that. But even if that asteroid were to hit, it still will not change the thoughts of people that are just incredible liars, and they're stuck in their fantasies and they're stuck in their hallucinations, and you're not going to ever get the truth about what really happened. And that's sad, actually. So when you're dealing with the deconstruction of yourself, re-examining your life, realigning your life, reconstructing your life, vow to yourself that you're going to be as honest as possible. You're going to make your decisions based on reality. Okay? And do everything in your power. You have to do this. You have to suspend who you think you are, what you think you are, and why you think you are. You're going to have to suspend those labels of who you think you are, what you think you are, and why you think you are. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to run into a brick wall. Several people, especially if you are under 40, I would say you're going to go through stages of deconstruction. Just as those are 40 and above, the 40 and above, you may just run out of lifetime. You're going to run out of lifetime, and so that has to be taken up when you pass the baton. But it's valuable to your lineage to vow to get to the truth of the matter and get to a point where you recognize whether something is logical, rational, and reasonable. You're not so pent up. You're not ruminating over your theories and opinions. You're allowing your theories and opinions to become knowledge. Whereas theories and opinions are not necessary. But sometimes you have to start with baby steps. Because, if I go to someone and say, that Apollo 11 that was in 69, that was a fraud, what are they going to do? They're going to look at me and say, bitch. Because the point is, because eventually the USA got there. And they possibly are still there. And they possibly have things set up there. That's more true than not. That's more logical than not. Why are they throwing these things up in the air? You know, I remember when I was on the East Coast. Oh, East Coast is that way. But anyway, I remember when I was on the East Coast, and I can just remember all of these things going up in the air. You know, these so-called shuttles, and it was just, but the news media wasn't talking about one particular episode I think it was 2022 or 2023. It was either late 22 or early 23. There was this, I saw it. There was some type of shuttle going off. And usually they make those announcements. They didn't make an announcement that time. And then the media claimed that people were calling in saying that they were hearing these sound barrier noises, as if something was breaking the sound barrier. And so they called into what people usually do is call into the news media and let them know, hey, did you know this was happening? Did you know why this happened? And I can remember some of the so-called anchors there were saying, yes, we're getting a lot of calls about people claiming that they heard a sound barrier, and they were wondering why it wasn't announced. And then there was some cover-up, whereas supposedly, I don't know if it was NASA or private, because it's privatized as well. NASA, like I said, NASA has this front-facing, public face, making people happy and making people feel, all this bullshit, performing. They're performing too, but then they have this back NASA, doing these missions, these secret missions. So apparently someone came through and said this or that, and they attempted to justify what it was, but they didn't say exactly what it was. And I can remember supposedly parts of that shuttle went up, and parts of it were supposed to come back, but it didn't happen, or something to that effect. In other words, it was a cover-up. So unfortunately, part of the consequences that we're going to be dealing with, which are devastating, catastrophic, is due to our not asking the proper questionings and trusting ourselves of what we actually see, that we're not imagining things, we're not making up things, we're not looking for attention. We see what we see is there, it's real. We have to really work on that. And that means snapping out of it. But unfortunately, it's too late for a lot of people, because they, like I said, they are just enmeshed in their delusion. They're hallucinating their imagination to where, what they don't know what they see. They can't tell what's real or what's fake. And that's so unfortunate. And it's going to be, that's the devastation and the catastrophe awaiting us. We didn't use those faculties to properly discern our lives. So here we are in the midst of catastrophic events, the consequences. So we're going to be in the consequences, I think, until I pass away and beyond, until we can reverse some of this stuff, and bring back universal love, freedom, harmony, abundance, intimacy, wisdom, truth. Okay, until that's done, we're going to keep ourselves in this spin of delusion, hallucination, and not being able to tell the truth from false, real and fake, because of our expertise. We're experts in lying. That's the one thing we're experts in: lying and performing and creating false personas of ourselves. So I'm going to stop right now, but trust me, I will be back.